You go forward and you treat Carl as a normal little boy. He doesn't get no special treats. He has to learn everything.
Children in Need, next Friday from 7 on BBC One. You can make the difference. You're watching BBC One.
Hello and good morning. Domestic violence is a fairly widespread problem, isn't it? Maz and Jez have a very violent and abusive relationship. Maz is 8.5 stone. Jez is 15 stone. The beatings are 3 or 4 times a week, punching, kicking, biting, even stabbing. But which one of them do you think is the victim? Well, it's not what you think. Actually, it's Jez. And Maz is the abuser. What causes a woman to beat up her man, and why does any man put up with it? Maz, why do you beat your partner?
I don't know why I do it. I just like, if he does something that I don't like, or he doesn't do what I tell him to do, I just go into like a rage, and I just flight him. And if anything I can get hold of, I will hit him with it. What
do you hit him with?
I'll chuck ornaments at him. If I can pick up a saucepan, I'll hit him with it. It's just anything, and if I can't hit him with something, I'll shout at him and I'll try and say things that'll hurt him.
What kind of things?
Really nasty things about his childhood and really horrible things that do hurt him.
And what kind of things have you hit him with?
I picked up a roll of wallpaper before and slung it round and hit his arm with it. I've grabbed a knife before and gone for his chest.
You stabbed him?
Yeah.
You've actually inflicted a wound on him?
Yeah, he was arguing in the kitchen and I was going through a bit of depression with my first baby, and I went for his chest and he turned to the side, so I stuck it in his shoulder, and I vowed then never to do it again. But then a couple of years later we got into another argument and there was another knife on the side, so I picked it up and stabbed him again in his chest here.
Why?
I don't know. I can't tell you, I just go into like a rage.
How often do these happen?
It started out to be once a month, but now it's gone to like 3 or 4 times a week.
It started out as once a month? Over how many period of years have you been doing this?
With 10 years, all the time we've been together.
So, and it started off once a month, now it's what?
3 to 4 times a week.
A week?
Yeah.
What's the trigger? You say something he doesn't know, what kind of thing?
Anything. If I can't find, say I want to write a letter and I can't find a pen, it's his fault. And if he can't find it, I will shout at him until he finds it. And when he can't, I go even worse, because it's his fault. I see it as his fault, and then I just go into like a rage. And
but you know it's not his fault, don't you?
No, I know it's not his fault, but
at the time you know it's not his fault.
Yeah, I'm just like...
So hang on, you want a pencil to write a letter.
Yeah.
You know you've got this violent past and you know it's wrong.
Yeah.
You know you shouldn't be doing it.
Yeah.
You know there's no reason for doing it.
Yeah.
You know it's not, he hasn't done anything to justify it.
Yeah.
Right, we've agreed, all right? So you've agreed all that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And your mind's in gear, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you know he's not responsible for you not having the pencil.
Yeah.
So why do you take up a knife and go for him?
I just go into a rage.
Why do you go into a rage?
I don't know. I think I get so frustrated inside and angry.
But it's not his fault.
I know.
He's not responsible.
Yeah, I know. But
and you know it's wrong.
Yeah, I know it's wrong, but I can't help it. I just, like, I'm there, but I'm not there, if you know what I mean. I'm just lashing out at him.
Tell me the feelings, what's going through your mind when you're doing it?
I can feel it bubbling up inside.
The rage?
Yeah, I can feel it's like red hot inside and I've got to get it out.
What do you think he feels like?
He looks like he's not bothered and he laughs. And I think it's through embarrassment that he laughs and hurt, because when it hurts him, that's the only way he can get the pain away is by laughing. And of course, that makes me even worse. So I'll flight him even more.
Do you love him?
Yeah.
You're hurting him?
I know that, yeah.
You're humiliating him?
Yeah.
Yes. You know you're humiliating him?
Yeah.
You're aware of that?
Yeah.
Why would you want to hurt and humiliate somebody you love?
I don't know. I just don't know.
You do know, Maz, don't you? What do you think? You must have thought about it. You sat there. You must have done. The way you're talking now, you've analysed what's going on. And there must have been a time when you sat down, even if you've not talked to anybody else, you must have done it to yourself. And you've said, why do I do this? Why do I hurt the man I love? What's wrong? You've said that. Have you said all those things to yourself?
I have, yeah.
All right, how do you answer yourself?
I just can't come up with any normal reason for doing it.
Is it
I
about
honestly can't.
control?
I think it is, yeah, because...
Oh, so you've thought
Yeah.
about, oh, and Mom,
Yeah.
mother-in-law, is
Yeah.
nodding her head very
Yeah.
vigorously. What's this control? It's about power, is it?
Oh, yeah.
No, I'll come to you, Mum. It's about power.
Yeah. I've got to be in control. It's not with females, it's males.
Males?
I've got to be in control.
Not just your husband, but males?
Males. I've got a friend, Mark, that lives over the back, and when I go over to his house, I'll say, stick kettle on light, and if he doesn't do it straight away, I'll get angry, and it's just males.
What's this thing about men that makes you want to control them?
I don't know, honestly. I was
something's
teased as a teenager by a lot of boys, and one day I was getting teased by this boy, and I decided I wasn't going to have it anymore, so I hit him. And I think ever since then, that's when I started hitting out, and it was not long after that I met Jez, and I wanted to be in control, so no one could tease me and get to me anymore, because I wanted to be the one that's first there to do it, so no one could turn around and do it to me, because I'm in control.
You say he laughs at you.
Yeah.
Does he ever feel, can you see that he's ever afraid?
Yeah,
You can see fear?
yeah,
Doesn't that stop you?
no.
Isn't there a glimmer of kind of humanity that this is a person you love and you know he is fearful?
If I wasn't in this rage, then I could understand it, I could be myself, but when I'm in this rage, it doesn't matter.
And afterwards?
Afterwards, I realise what I've done, and sometimes I feel guilty, and other times I won't. I just don't feel nothing other times.
You don't feel no guilt?
Sometimes I do.
No remorse? You don't go and apologise and say, I won't do it again?
Not all the time, no.
But what stops the rage?
I just calm down as quick as I balled up.
Why'd you put up with it, Jess?
I suppose because I love her.
Oh, but that's easy to say.
Yeah,
She's
it's easy to
kicking you,
say.
beating you, getting into a rage, being totally irrational and violent, stabbing you. What kind of an atmosphere is that creating in the household?
Obviously, there's no real atmosphere whatsoever. I mean, sometimes you can cut it with a knife. A figure of speech, of course.
And the kids?
But the kids, ideally, they don't see it.
Ideally, but in
Tammy,
practice?
obviously, my youngest Tammy, she has seen it once. Oldest, sorry, yeah. She's seen it once when she was small. She was about 9 months old, and she just burst out squealing. So Maz stopped. She stopped her rage, everything just there and then.
What does this make you feel? She says she thinks you're humiliated.
Basically, yeah.
You do feel humiliated.
Say, I used to be a doorman. Obviously, I've got a bit of a reputation. A few people do look up to me, and obviously now people know this. That's going to go out the window, but that doesn't bother me. Basically, what it is, I want Maz to get some sort of help.
Hang on, Elena. But what about you? What's it doing to you?
It's basically destroying me. I mean, I used to be excuse me.
It's all right, take your time.
I used to be a real strong character. I mean, like, yeah, you look at me, you see me, yeah, I'm a big lad, whatever, but you can't turn around and hit a woman, especially someone you love.
You could stop her.
Yeah, I do.
You're big enough to actually, when she comes towards you with a fist or a frying pan or a knife, you're big enough to grab her by the wrist, aren't you? I mean, if I came towards you now, that's what you'd do. You might do something more than that, but at the minimum, that's what you'd do to restrain me. If you didn't want to hurt me, or if it was you coming to me and I didn't want to hurt you, I just wanted to stop you, I'd grab you by the wrist, wouldn't I? And I'd hold you there. And I'd got the strength to hold. You've got the strength to hold her there, haven't you?
Yeah.
You've got the strength to do a lot more than that with your head or your knees or whatever.
That's right, yeah.
Why don't you at least do that? Why don't you just hold her?
In the past, I've done that.
But what do you do then? Put your hands up, or do you cower?
I mean, yeah, I cower away. I hold her as long as I can. But I mean, she gets her arms everywhere, legs, feet, her knees, anything she can get me with while she's in the temper, it'll be there.
Well, I'd just like to say, I think you're a very lucky girl. I mean, you've got a guy that size who obviously loves you because he's holding your hand.
Yeah.
She's grabbing it. Don't be too sure about it.
I think you're very lucky to have him, because if he goes, you're not going to get anybody else where you're talking. If you beat up everybody.
But there is help there.
Hang on, Elaine, I'll come to that, please. Sean?
I just, I mean, I really feel for him because I was in a violent relationship. And I just don't think you should have to put up with it, but I know what you're going through. And I was exactly the same. All you can do is just stand there and let the rage come out and just let her get on with it until she's finished, until she's calmed down. but I personally don't think you should have to go through this.
What do you think he should do then? You think he should leave?
I think he should just get out, yeah. I mean, it's easier said than done. It's easy to say because I've been in a relationship that was violent and I did get out.
If you love someone that much, you will stick with them and try and help them. You will try and get them through what they're going through. You'd understand what they're
Why should he stick? Hang on, Mike. Why should he stick with you and try and help you if you're doing that?
Because he loves me. If he loves me that much, that he wants
he
to help.
shouldn't have to. He shouldn't have to go through what he's going through.
I understand completely how you're feeling. I mean, I was in happily not as bad a situation, but I just love the woman. I've never loved a woman like it before nor since. And once you've got that celestial fire with someone special, even though they may be bad, you don't want to let it go because you fear you'll never find it again.
That's right, yeah.
And, you know, I had to take a razor to my insides to finally cut that woman out of my life. But I fear I will never find such an intense love again because I was loved just intensely back. You have my sympathy. I know exactly what you're going through.
When I'm in a rage, I'm a different person, but when I'm not in a rage, we get on brilliant, don't we? We do everything together.
Oh yeah, the highs are high.
This Friday, you have to disagree with you. What do you mean? We get on brilliant, just squeezing his hand there.
I mean, my lady was always either at my throat or at my feet.
Yeah.
I mean, in the penultimate breakup, she took an overdose. And how do you cut yourself off from someone you adore, who's trying to be as sorry as they can?
That's right.
How do you resist them?
That's right, there's always something
You're
there.
lost. When someone gets under your skin like that, though they be bad, you're in deep trouble.
Yeah.
That's
deep
right, I mean,
trouble.
like you say, you've got that burning love. I mean, it is hard to find. Obviously, I know I can't go on like this, no.
Love and reason are sworn enemies.
Exactly.
That's
What were you going to say? Sorry, hang on, Paul.
exactly
Hang on, Sean.
This lady says she loves her husband, but I can't see that you do, because if you really loved him, you'd never, ever hurt him. You wouldn't do anything to hurt him.
But have you ever...
How many children have you got?
2.
Is one a boy?
No.
No. I wonder what you'd do. You say you only go for males.
Yeah.
What if you had a little boy?
No, no.
Would the same happen to him?
No.
How do you know?
No. My kids, I would not hurt them at all, my kids.
Well,
no.
why do you hurt you? Now, there you're in control.
Yeah.
So if you can do that, if you can be so confident to us and say, no, I wouldn't hurt
but
my...
I think your kids, you're in control in a different way. You're in control of them till they grow up. But a boyfriend, he can walk out on you whenever. So you've got to be in control to stop him doing that, even though you're hurting him. And yeah, that's how
But surely, if you think that he loves you and he tells you how much you love him, you don't have to be in control. You'll know he won't go.
Yeah, but
What, you think you're keeping him by stabbing him? No, I'm not being funny. I wasn't being funny.
No.
But that's what you've just said. You're keeping him there by stabbing him, by kicking him, by beating him.
If I do that, I'm in control because he's scared of me, and what I say goes then. So if I say he can't leave, he won't leave.
That's not the basis of a
I know
relationship.
it's not. No, I know.
It's not the basis of
Sean,
a true relationship.
No, I know.
He's going to leave eventually if you carry on.
Exactly.
Hang on, Val.
Well, I would just like to point out that looking at Jez and Maz, I cannot believe that Jez has ever been seriously at any risk of harm because of the difference in their size. Whereas if Jez was angry with Maz and took a frying pan to her, she would be dead. So I think one has to bear in mind...
What are you saying? That he's a push job?
Well, I'm just saying that this is probably relatively... This is not dangerous violence by the sound of it.
Oh, it's nothing. It's nothing. It's nothing, Jez. Hang on a minute, right?
It's nothing. I mean, yeah, I've been stabbed twice. That's nothing.
You could disarm her in 20 seconds, 2 seconds.
Oh yeah, obviously
She's
I can, yeah. But I mean, you can't turn around. I mean, any person who hits a woman is not a man. They're nothing.
But a man is, I think, entitled
Yeah,
to
but
disarm a
any woman, no matter what size they are, if they're in a rage, they've got the strength behind them. You're in a rage, you just find it somewhere inside
but you can't actually hurt a man who is virtually twice your size.
If you've got an instrument or weapon, you can do it. If you.
What you're actually saying is absolute rubbish. She's attacked him with a knife.
Yeah.
That is it. Far more men actually suffer far serious injuries from women in domestic disputes because women use weapons.
Were you hurt?
That's actually not correct. Far more women are killed by men in domestic disputes than men are killed by women.
So is it...
So hang on, Mike, what are you going to say?
Make it right.
I mean, you're mixing up your statistics here. Which you're talking about. And you're also mixing up spouses with cohabitees with boyfriends of 7 days.
We're partners. We're talking about domestic violence.
Most of the murders that you're talking about, right, occur with casual relationships. The safest form of any woman is to be in a married relationship. Now, you were talking down here about a situation where people were being stabbed and they weren't defending themselves. Well, if you notice, his analysis, and I think your analysis as well, was that they were stabbed when they weren't looking. Now, that's okay if you take your premise and yours, where you grab the person coming at you.
Oh, what was the premise? I just asked the question.
Oh, right, I'm sorry.
She's laying down the law. He's my doctor friend here.
Right.
My general practitioner. I don't think you better go to her if you've been stabbed, by the way, because she won't believe it's happened to you.
That's right. To reply to this question, this point, that married relationships are the safest relationships for women, that is apparently not the case. There's been a lot in the press in the last 5 to 10 years. We're not going to argue statistics. I'm
not interested in statistics. I'm interested in... No, because we're interested in the people here. You can't hurt him, Elena. My doctor says that you can't hurt Mike. Have you hurt him?
I've been violent towards him, yes.
He's still here, though, I notice. I notice he's alive.
But what are you saying? You're saying that... No. What you're actually saying, the point she's making, is that men are putting up with it. They accept... I don't want to use the word like, but you're almost implying they like it. You're certainly saying they're accepting it.
But I'm saying that they realise that, in fact, they're not seriously at risk.
You are just... No, that's Mike, come on. Please, Mike. Hang on, my friend, hang on.
You are seriously joking. Women, per se, because of the size, will use weapons. Men, in a domestic dispute, tend to use the fists. It's women that use the weapons, the knives.
What has Elena done to you? What has Elena done to you?
Yeah, the whole point.
What has Elena done to you?
Nothing as serious as that.
Nobody should have to put up with it.
I've thrown things. We've had an argument, and is he going to work? I throw a bottle and things like that, and I scream and that, but...
Nothing as violent as knives.
A plastic bottle?
But you're saying that you are at risk. My doctor's saying you're never really at risk because you're a man and men can't be at risk. You said that what she said was highly offensive. What was it that she said that was highly offensive?
Well, I think what she's more or less saying is that somehow men don't feel things, don't feel pain, don't feel a knife in them. Is that how you feel?
A huge discrepancy in size and strength gives men an enormous advantage.
It does, but a man's... I mean,
hang on, go on, Sean.
Like Jez, he's not willing to use that advantage. Quite rightly. I was the same. I wasn't willing to use that. Why should I turn around and hit her?
It's the psychological aspect of it, particularly
I'm happy to discuss this as an emotional situation, psychological attack, but I don't think it's violence in women can be compared, at least violence of women towards men, can be compared to violence of men towards women, because of the
we shouldn't have to compare. I've seen it all my life, right? My dad was 5'10". He was a professional boxer. He'd been champion of the North. He was a good boxer. My mother was 5'1½", little Italian woman. My mother could bodily pick my dad up and throw him. Right? It's a whole conglomeration of things. My mum used to goad my dad and goad him and goad him and goad him until he snapped. And I mean, in my opinion, he shouldn't have hit her, but she would hit him. She would go to him into hitting her, and she would hit him back. And she only ever hit me once when I was 14, and I literally saw stars. She caught me on the side of the head like that. I was being very stubborn. I was doing wrong. I deserved to be in trouble. But I was so stunned that I sat down and I just, these, you know, like in the comics, in the Beano, where the birds and bells are good. That's what it was like. One blow from my mum. She had arms like a man, hands like a man. She was a very hard-working woman. It's got nothing to do with size, but
from some of the general
before you
issues
do,
to
the psychological aspect, I think, plays the biggest part.
Yes.
Men are brought up not to hurt women.
That's right, yeah.
They're brought up that way. I used to work in care as well. The women didn't tend to have the problems with boys that the men did. The boys would stand up to the men and challenge them. They wouldn't do that with the women.
No. What the good doctor is saying, actually, is that the men who have been killed by females are not at serious risk of harm.
In a way, though, that's not the issue right here. One of the things I'm curious about for both of you is, who else do you attack? Who else do you beat up?
Nobody.
Either of you work outside the home?
They don't beat, no, they both said no, they don't beat anybody else up.
Okay, so in your daily encounters with other people, you don't resort to violence?
I can be in the room with him, and I can also be in the room with some of my friends, and if I get into a rage, it's him. And I was shouting at him, but as soon as I look at my friends, I can talk as nice as pie to them. But when I look back at him, I'm boiling up again inside.
The point I'm trying to make is, I think at some level you're making a choice to abuse your husband. If you were totally out of control, you'd be punching everybody's lights out. You tend to be able to maintain control in other situations, but you've learned somewhere along the way that you can get away with it.
Because the man does not retaliate.
Exactly.
I have to come back to our...
Oh, no, don't go back to that. I don't want any Home Office statistics and bandying about and all that.
I don't even want to talk statistics, because I don't believe in half them anyhow. But can I ask our doctor friend if she doesn't believe that the issue of violence against men is as equally as important as violence against women?
It is equally important, but it is not as frequent.
Oh, well, I guess it's more frequent than people realise.
Well, then you're on the statistics.
Yeah.
And I would have to disagree with you.
What we know is it's important to the people here, and in fact, this isn't the first programme that I've done on domestic violence, which has involved women beating men, and it's been very important. We're keeping your identity a secret. We're protecting your anonymity because you're afraid of your wife.
Yeah.
What does she do?
Very much what I've heard so far this morning. Started with objects being thrown at me, scratching to the neck. It would become more sinister, wake up with the pillows across my face. And I think the worst was when I was in the bath and she came in and held a steak knife to my throat.
Why did she do all this?
There was never an explanation from her. It seemed like a jealousy.
Were you afraid?
Very afraid, yes.
My doctor says you could stop it.
I've heard the talk about not hitting a woman. I'd like to think I'm noble enough to agree with that, but it never came into the equation. She was, in my opinion, trying to provoke me to hit her.
Why?
She was unhappy within the relationship and wanted me to leave anyway.
She was venting her rage and her frustrations upon you. Was she in the rage that Maz there has been describing? The same kind of...
It was like reliving it, listening to Maz.
Really?
It was very much like reliving it.
And you loved her?
I loved her.
Did you feel humiliated, like Jez did?
Very much so.
You felt humiliated and afraid. What else?
I was afraid for myself, but also for my family. And I've heard the suggestion that why don't you leave? Why do you put up with this? But I have 2 children. We have 2 children, and you can't just walk out on 2 children.
Is that why you stayed?
In the end, yes.
For the sake of the kids?
Yes.
You're a police officer?
And that's right.
You know about violence. If this lady on the end here came to you and said, my husband is beating me, you'd do something about it. Why didn't you go to the police? Why didn't you tell your friends in the force?
We're macho, aren't we? We're men. We don't do that. It doesn't happen, especially when you're a policeman.
So you were too ashamed?
Yes.
Just like the woman who walks into doors, doesn't want to tell her friends because she doesn't want to be ashamed of the fact that her husband beats her and gives her the black eye. She doesn't want people to know that, so she maintains the pretense of a happy family home. You were also maintaining that pretense, but there's an additional factor here, that you're a man.
Yes.
And you've got to be macho.
Yes.
And you've got to be in control. Because the doctor doesn't believe it can happen. And that's part of your problem, that she doesn't believe it can happen.
Very much so. The attitude, well, you just don't think you're going to be believed.
So that makes it worse?
It makes it far worse. And you extend it. You extend it to, if I leave, I've got no chance of having the children.
Mike, you're a police officer too, aren't you? You were an ex-police officer. Why didn't you report it? Why didn't you do it? Were you ashamed?
You're the protector, not the one that needs protecting. That's right. That's the job.
But so? Your wife is beating you. It's a domestic.
It's part of
we now recognise these domestics. It's part, you have a domestic violence unit. In every police force you have a domestic violence set, probably where people are interviewed.
Geared to women. It is geared to women and children being the victims and men being the perpetrators.
And if it was a woman, we'd be saying, well, why didn't you leave?
Yeah, well, women have the refuges, they've got women's aid. Men actually have absolutely nothing. There is nothing there for men.
Why didn't you leave?
They are not believed.
Yeah, why didn't you leave? Not
Kids.
because there wasn't kids?
Job.
That's one of my biggest, the kids. And the love. And it's just so strong. It's, say, like, I mean, the fella over there, this is right, when they do attack, they're in like the rage, yes, you can stop. And like the good doctor says, when they are attacking you, I mean, yes, you can stop them, but they come with such blinding rage. It's just...
May, what do you feel about all this? Should he leave?
Well, I won't put up with it.
You wouldn't put up
No,
with
I
it?
wouldn't.
Well,
No.
you see it, presumably.
I've seen it. I've seen her cracking one.
You have?
Especially when she's tired and he won't get things for it, she'll beat him up.
Beat him up? Yeah. The doctor says it can't happen.
It can. I've seen it.
But she said the doctor says he could stop it.
No.
Why?
He could.
No. What?
I don't see it.
What is he saying? He can't. He can't.
No.
Why not?
She just gets in that rage and that's it. Nothing to change it.
What's it doing to him?
Well, it's upsetting him.
Is he upsetting you?
He's a different lad to when I first met him.
What do you think he should do?
Well, I'd get out of it if I was him, but...
You would get... He's your...
Be my son-in-law.
Your son-in-law.
Yeah.
You're
But
talking
he
about
loves
your daughter.
I am.
Now, that's the critical part. You're not his mom.
No.
You're his daughter, his daughter-in-law. She's your son-in-law. But you're saying he should leave your daughter, which is quite a powerful thing for a mother to say. Is that bad?
She is, yeah, she's violent. She's always been bossy to males.
Who are you saying he should leave for the sake of himself or the children?
For himself.
For himself? The kids?
Well, just think about the kids, but most of the kids see it.
And what about your daughter?
Well, she'll have to change her ways, won't she?
Should they leave? Should they leave? Should they leave?
He should leave for the kids' sake as well.
We've had 3 cases here already where people said that they've stayed for the sake that they love the person that's abusing them, and they've stayed for the children. That's not love. You said that you really loved your wife. I don't disbelieve you.
It wasn't a wife, I'm afraid.
Well, your girlfriend, your ex,
partner, yeah.
whatever, your partner.
Partner, yeah.
You said you loved your wife. I truly believe you did. She clearly didn't love you. The people that I've loved, I've never hit, I've never smacked. There's been times when they've really annoyed me, and I could explode if I wanted to, but I take myself for a walk. I go to the newsagents, buy a big bar of chocolate, whatever.
Well, she
I don't hit them.
Have you ever had that anger boil up inside you that just make you so mad that you just have to fly for them, you just have to do something to hurt them, to show them how much you hate them?
I've been in a situation where somebody has annoyed me so much that if I'd been less rational, I could have done, but the fact is, the way I've been brought up, I know it's wrong. It's against my morals, it's against the way I've been brought up, it's against the law, society deems it wrong, everybody sees it wrong. So if I get to that situation, I think, right, I take my key and I go for a walk. I cool down for an hour, walk around the block, and I calm down
What do you do,
when I'm
though?
in a smarter state.
Go on, please, Val, you're interrupting Jez.
If you can't get rid of that anger, if you go outside and walk around, but it's still, and it goes, you think it's gone.
Professional help.
But you think it's gone, and you go back in the house, and you see him again, and it's there again. What?
Seek professional help. You're the one with the problem, not him.
Yes.
He should.
Seek professional. But like you just said, seek professional help. I mean, you've got to think of me as well. I mean, it's took a lot for me to come on the show, and Mike and the rest of the Paul, you say, yeah.
I begged.
Let's just finish what he's saying.
Right. I mean, for me, see, a lot of people see me and they say it's statutory, big bloke, blah blah blah. But it takes a lot to come out and say, yes, it is happening.
Why does it take a lot, Jez?
Because it's embarrassment.
You feel
really
embarrassed?
yeah.
As you're talking now, you feel embarrassed?
I am, yeah.
You're embarrassed?
I feel better now talking about it and getting, and I mean, I know nobody's going to laugh at me. I mean, probably at home, maybe.
No, they're not. Nobody's going to laugh at you.
But here, I mean, we're all in the same boat, and I mean, it's hard to get, like, it's unbelievable.
The fact that you're here talking that you're seeing my police officer friend, whose anonymity we're protecting at the back. You've got Mike, you've got Sean, and you've got Paul. None of the, and others. But you've got those and my friend at the back there too. You've got those who are not, by any stretch of the imagination, wimps. All right?
No.
Macho, hard-looking, strong, firm-looking men. The fact that you've been talking and sharing it, that is helping you feel.
Oh, definitely.
That you're not alone.
Feel
but it's not particularly. And you don't have to. The problem isn't, you don't have to be embarrassed about this, do you? When you walk away from here, I don't want you to. I'm worried that when you walk out of here and you go back to where you're looked up to, you were referring earlier on, you're going to be. You don't have to be embarrassed. The problem isn't with you. The problem is with Maz. And Maz has a problem which she recognises, and Maz has to deal with it. And you can deal with it because there is help available, Elena, isn't there?
There is. Yeah. I got help a long time ago, 7 years ago, and I haven't been violent since. And it takes a lot of courage. I think the first thing is to admit it, that you need help.
It's taking that first step. I think when you get over that first step, it all comes, you can just do it.
And it's finding the help as well, because my husband tried to help me at first, and they wouldn't listen to him.
Where'd you get help from?
Professional help.
Okay, there's help available. We're going to put up a helpline number now, actually. There's help. Help for you if you're the wife that's violent and you have these uncontrollable urges and rages, then ring this number. If you're the partner of the man of this violent woman, you can get help. Ring this number. And if you're somebody, a member of the family, a mother, a father-in-law, then help. Get them help by ringing this number. We're talking about violent women. It exists, believe me. There are women who, for one reason or another, can't help themselves but take it into their mind to beat the man they love. Should the man fight back? Should he fight back, Sean?
No.
Why?
It's lowering yourself to their level, isn't it? I mean...
It's protecting yourself, Sean.
In the eyes of the law, it's not. In the eyes of the law, this probably doesn't exist.
It's called self-preservation, Sean.
Yeah.
It's called staying alive.
Yeah, but in the eyes of the law, this doesn't exist.
But you're not thinking
women beating men doesn't happen.
When she's coming at you with a knife, you don't think about what's in the law. You think about saving your life, don't you?
True,
I can only corroborate that, Robert. I mean, if the assault that took place on me had not happened in a nightclub without provocation in front of hundreds of people, and it happened behind closed doors, my lady would have got off scot-free with it, and may even have turned it round that she was defending herself against me. This is the advantage that I enjoy.
So what, did you never fight back?
I used to dodge and duck.
Did you fight back, Paul?
To begin with, no.
Why?
Because I moved faster than she did.
And should you fight back?
Absolutely. I had a partner that actually attacked me, and I didn't actually fight back, but I held her off, and she was screaming and shouting, and I held her arms like this, and she was shouting, and I pushed her off the bed, and then the next day it all cleared up, and she was bruising her arms, and she said to me, "Look what you've done, look at your bruises."
Oh, yes.
But I'm protecting myself. I didn't actually hit you, but I was protecting myself from you. You know,
but as this gentleman pointed out, the law does not want to believe these things of the feminine gender. And
that's not the law, though. The law protects every one of us from being violated against anybody else, whether you're male, female, or alien. No, it's bias among the police service, possibly, but the law will protect each and every one of us.
But it's actually convincing people that it's happening in the first place.
So if the law had been on your side, if you'd have felt the law on your side, you would have fought back.
No, I don't think you should fight back.
The system is...
Surely violence, you don't fight violence with violence because you never get anywhere.
That's right.
If someone's attacking me, then I don't care if it's a woman or a man. If someone's attacking me, then I will protect myself. If it's a man, obviously, then I would punch him. And I think even now, if a woman actually attacked me, I would punch him. You know, I'm sorry. I don't care if you're a woman or a man.
I don't think violence is the answer.
Well, we know violence isn't the answer, but she's coming at him with a broom handle, with a knife, with a frying pan, and you're saying, "Oh, what? Be Mother Teresa, Jez? Pray."
But he hasn't hit her back, has he?
No. Well, perhaps. I wonder what would have happened if he had.
If he did hit me back, it would shock me, and I'd stand back and think, oh, he can fight back and he can hurt
I'm
me
not
back
suggesting he should do this.
No, but I think
But let's imagine that he wasn't a nice man. He's not a gentleman. He doesn't have all these kind of philosophical trimmings of civilization we've got here. And he gave you a lovely straight left on the chin and put you out. Would you come at him again the next day?
Think about it. I won't just go in there and do it. I would think about it.
Should think about it.
Just saying that there, Robert.
Hang on.
How would Jez feel that he has harmed his wife?
I'm not going to ask Jez. How would you feel if it was you?
Well,
you'd feel as if you solved the problem, wouldn't you?
I don't think violence is the issue, isn't it? But there's a situation where if someone's hitting you, then I'm no longer now going to stand and think, you're going to hit me. No way. I don't care whoever
But
it is.
I don't think hitting back, if he hit me back, that'll probably solve the problem, for maybe a couple of weeks or a couple of months. But then when you've got over the shock, it's going to start again and again. And, you know, and then in the end, he's going to start hitting back all the time. So it's just going to be the both of us fighting all the time. And
Sorry, this is the... for me, this is a direct reflection of civilization as it is now. Yes? Women... Well, turn this thing around. If Jez was hitting you, it wouldn't be a case of, like the good doctor was saying, she can't believe it, or everybody would believe it.
It's like...
It's a case of men being subdued too much in the civilized society. That's the way I look at it. Yes?
So what are you saying?
I'm not saying he should hit her. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is we have to take stock of ourselves as rational.
So
like the
he's taking stock.
Take stock of ourselves. Yes?
He's taking stock. What should he do?
What should he do?
Yeah.
Well, if I was him, I would have hit her.
Did we know he was going to say that?
I mean, let's put things in perspective. It's a bit unfair. We really shouldn't be sitting down here. This man's embarrassed. I've forgotten what she said.
Don't go back to the Home Office.
I must. Sorry, I must. You were saying something along the lines. It's unbelievable. Something to the effect of, she can't really do him much harm.
Why?
But she can do him harm.
You want to say it?
I want to talk to my friend who's anonymous. She was saying we're talking about fighting back, Dave.
Yeah. The thing that struck me is the turnaround, basically. The police were never involved in our encounters, but I, on one occasion, took my wife's hand away from my throat. She actually approached me as I was going to work. I thought she was going to kiss me. She reached out to my throat, and she actually dug her nails in, and I took her hand away from my throat. Within 3 days, I had a letter from her solicitor saying that I'd assaulted her, and that if there was a recurrence, that I would end up in court. And that was when, on that day, I got into the bath, and she held a steak knife to my throat, and she said,
but that's the time you should have got out. At that time, when you got that letter...
Let me come in front of you, I'm sorry. Yeah, go on.
At that time, as soon as you got that letter from that solicitor, you should have said, that was it, I'm off.
Why?
He should have sent the solicitor letter first.
Yes, he should have...
Why didn't he get in there first, the letter?
He should have got out of that, because all you're doing, all you people, I think, is it's a bit like toothache. It will happen eventually. You will go.
Yeah, but with that...
If you've got toothache, it will get worse and worse and worse until such time you've got to go to the dentist and have it out. And it's the same in your situation. It will get worse and worse and worse. I lived with a lady for 15 months. She was a lovely lady. There was no violence involved, and I stuck with it and stuck with it, and in the end, I had to go.
Yeah,
and unless you can sort it out.
Right, okay, saying it like...
There are three ways, and there are 3 ways. You can either give her a good clumping, which I'm not condoning, all right? But if you give her a good clumping, or suggesting, sorry,
If you give her a good clubbing, that might sort her out. All right?
That's one.
You let it carry on, or you get out, or you get her some help.
Yes, that's four.
I've got
George,
three returns to that, and yeah. One, yes, I have retaliated to her once. I mean, she was
And how
kicking
did
off.
she react?
Well,
It wasn't that you
let
hit
me
me,
explain.
wasn't it?
I mean, I didn't hit her or anything. Basically, she was going off, and she scratched on my chest, she scratched my neck. She'd hit me, I think it was another wallpaper or something, into the kitchen. She grabbed another knife, and I wasn't having it this time. I'd been stabbed twice. So I grabbed her by the scruff of the neck, stuck her head in the sink, and turned the tap on.
Lovely.
It calmed her down.
Oh, lovely, it says. Oh, and we don't approve of violence. Lovely.
No, I don't. Well, I'm not saying lovely. What I'm
Well, you
saying
did say
it's calming her down. It's sorting her out, and that's. You know, I'm not. I'm not saying.
Like managing the problem like that.
No, clearly, because you did it again.
No, it's all right managing the problem like that for the time being, but what about when it happens again? You can't just keep going on and doing it again and again. You've got to, I don't know.
You've got to get help, haven't you? You've got to get help.
I know I need help.
Part of the problem, presumably, in getting help is that people don't believe you. You're ashamed or embarrassed about the man is about talking about it.
It's a lot easier for a woman to go into a police station or something and say, I've just been beaten up by my husband.
Right.
They'll believe you straight away. But if a man walks into a police station and say, I've just been beaten up by my wife, after all the laughs and giggles have stopped, then you've got to convince them to believe it.
And is that a problem when you go into the police station? Move up for me, my friend, and you tell the police. Do they believe you?
Well, I had to report the girl that I was seeing to the police, and they don't believe you when you go in there.
What did you say to them? Move up for me a little bit more.
Just used to say what was happening in that, and it would be like everyone here said today. You know, you feel really embarrassed, and you just feel like you're trapped. And you know you should get out, but you can't seem to get out because you're.
Are you another police officer?
No.
Oh, you're not a police officer, all right. I know we've got three of them here. Perhaps it's with the real police officer, but you felt embarrassed and they didn't believe you.
Mm.
I hear what you say. I'm Graham Pearson. I'm a police officer from the Domestic Violence Unit in Hertfordshire. And one of the experiences I've found in the last few years, it's been said from the front of the floor, if a female comes in, they're talking, they're afraid violence has occurred, and the word fear is there. When I've dealt with male victims, it's always embarrassment. They're afraid of what their colleagues will say at work, and I echo my colleagues over there, reasons they won't come forward, whether a police officer or a member of the public, because they're embarrassed that people won't actually listen to them or believe them.
Mm.
What I will say, if you come to any place in Hertfordshire, we will do everything we can for you. We will listen to you, and we'll do everything to support you.
You take it seriously?
We will take you
See,
seriously.
we like that. This has great echoes for me of the time when I was still a member of Parliament and we were talking about domestic violence, women, and when it wasn't treated seriously or police didn't want to get involved. It was the domestic. And the whole kind of attitude to that has changed now. We recognise it as a problem. It's now indeed a criminal offence, and it wasn't then. And we have a whole apparatus of law and social services to deal with it. Part of the problem then was believing it, obtaining evidence, and people reporting it because of the overcoming the fear of the stigma. We've got all that same problems now with men, haven't we? They're not believed, there's a stigma, they're embarrassed, they're laughed at.
The problems are there. I do hear people talk about when they've reported to me that they felt they weren't believed, they weren't sure what the officer might have said, but each time they then said, once the officer's actually listened to me, they've actually taken my point of view on board and then passed it on to my unit.
Paul, do the police take it seriously?
The police I always found were in a very difficult position, but they did sort of take a balanced view of it and do their best. It's the judiciary that I had the main complaint about. They are the ones who actually betrayed the whole situation.
When you get to court, you mean? But the police themselves actually do accept there's a problem, are prepared to treat it prima facie, there's a problem.
Yeah, the police officer concerned went round the lady's address at 1 o'clock in the morning and swiftly took her off to the cells.
I was going to say, I run a men's group down in the southwest, so I've got quite a large number of men on my groups. Now, it's not all about domestic violence, but usually when they're going through the breakup of their marriage and divorce, women certainly have a ways of means of ensuring that they goad the men on. In some cases, they physically attack them. Mostly, they verbally attack them. If they physically attack these men and they go to the police do not want to know. I have held 2 meetings on domestic violence in the last few months. The first one, a woman officer came along from Yeovil, very helpful, but really was not helpful to our men in as much that there was nothing there, nothing at all on the ground to help men with. She said there is nothing that we can actually help you with. There are no men's refuges, and there is nothing we can help you with, and social services don't want to know. I put an invite, we had Erin Pitsey, who you've probably heard of, came down at our last meeting last week. I sent an invitation out to every single domestic violence unit in Somerset and Bristol, plus one down to Devon, where the chap down there said that he felt that 95% of the problem was for women and not for men. We challenged him on that and said, come to the meeting, send me an invitation. He said he didn't even turn up.
One thing I'd like to also explain is that although I'm a police officer, I'm not actually based in a police station. My office is actually based at the Children and Families team of the social services, and they do take it seriously, very seriously indeed.
I'm pleased they do in Hertfordshire.
I was going to say, this gentleman got his...
in public,
In public. Domestic violence by its nature is private between two people, and the battle you have is when you go to a police station or the police turn up, the system is so geared to looking at men as the perpetrators and women and children as the victims.
It's in your hand.
That is why men are not believed.
You've read your 1990 handbook, have you?
Your
1990 guidance handbook.
Vintage champagne, 1990.
Have you read it?
We're working to our own policies that have been...
Have you read it?
Not the 1991, no.
Well, read it. That is what is issued to the police.
But surely it's been updated since then.
No, it hasn't. All the way through it, it is the male as the perpetrator and the female
Okay,
as
but
the
that's
victim.
because that's out of date. It's not his fault,
No,
but it's out of date.
Exactly, but
That has
what
to,
they work
okay, you're making the point. Okay, is it a some of the men earlier were talking about the law and about the law not favouring them. Is it a problem also with the law?
I think that the law is perfectly fair in black and white on the pages of the law books. I'm a solicitor practising in this area. If you look at the new law in particular, the Part 4 of the Family Law Act, the law is absolutely fair in black and white. It's when it comes into practice that I think people are experiencing problems. This is what I've been hearing today. For example, the gentleman who wished to remain anonymous, there is no reason in law why he shouldn't try to obtain an injunction getting his wife to leave the home. Why is everybody talking about it's him that has to go?
Because he wants to stay with the children, presumably.
But there's no reason why he shouldn't stay with the children if the court takes the view that that's the right thing. The abusive person is usually the person who's ordered to leave.
Let's go and ask him. Come with me. Can I get you some free legal advice here? Move along, please, because we've got to respect his anonymity. You sit down, tell him why you're not getting an injunction.
The answer is I do have the children.
Oh, right.
The children are with me. One of the children has not seen her mother since her mother left. I do have control of the house, but in practice, everything is stacked, in my experience, against the man.
What's stacked against you?
Financially, blame for the breakup.
Oh, you're talking now about when you go beyond the violence to getting a divorce or a separation and getting custody of the children.
My problems ended when my wife left. I came home from work one day to find the house empty, apart from my daughter's bedroom furniture. And since that day, it's been assumed that I have no control over the children, no care of the children, even though I quite clearly do. And
what, you mean you're having problems getting custody?
No, there's no...
Well, you say it's assumed by whom? The court or...?
By
what's the legal problem?
The legal problem is an assumption that mum is best for care.
Well, we all do tend to make that assumption, don't we? You probably do.
But bearing in mind my daughter...
But we know there are exceptions to the rule.
Yeah.
We always tend to favour, presumably, the mother, because we do. That's the way our society, my friend, brings people up and what have you. But it doesn't mean to say it's right in every case and that the mother is always the best, because we know that she's not. We know there are occasions when the father ought to be in control of the children, when he ought to have custody of them, because he is the best person. But the law, presumably, Mrs. Solicitor, does recognise that and is sensitive enough to the circumstances of the particular case.
Well, the law is supposed, again, the letter of the law says that the father and the mother have equal rights to be taken seriously and have an equal case. with very young children, there does tend to be an assumption that they should perhaps stay with mother. But again, this is an area where the letter of the law and what actually happens on the ground may be quite different. People's experience on the ground.
A very wide abyss, let me assure you.
Yes, well, I see
By
that
the time the courts were finished with me, myself being the victim, I was almost convinced that I'd smashed that glass and stuck it in my own face.
Yes.
That's how bad it got.
Yes.
And it was definitely the judiciary, with this slanted view they have of female violence, and let me say, you know, thus the muses sang of Swain.
We've got a picture of them.
Because the muses never knew their pain.
This is what happened to you. This is the photograph of what you went through. But you're saying, and nobody still believed that that could have happened to you.
The judiciary done their best to absolve her in any way that they possibly could. You know, ad nauseum.
Why?
To try.
But why?
This is what I'm trying to find out. But, you know, no one can answer this. There does seem to be...
That's exactly the point, though. Women don't do it.
Women don't do this. You're knocking the angel off the Christmas tree.
The point is that always troubles me. People do this. Some women do it. Some men do it. People are victims. People are abused.
Yeah.
I'm not so interested in the gender divide as perhaps...
But they are, because
yes,
they're men,
of course,
and they are. Remember, let's
yes.
go back to our good doctor. And I'm going to come to you in a minute, doctor, with a prescription. But our good doctor, with all respect to her, is the problem. For the men, because all of what they said, the credibility.
Yes.
And she sits there, our good doctor, and she says, don't believe it. Can't happen. Oh, it can't happen because all the words we said. That is what Paul and Sean are saying, is that attitude, rightly or wrongly, permeates into the law.
There is this
into attitude in the judiciary. Is that the case?
Well,
hang on, please. I've asked the question. I've got to let her answer it.
It's very difficult to say. Very, very few cases actually go to court, I would say, of men experiencing domestic violence. Other people in the audience have mentioned reasons for that, which I think are entirely valid. Men see themselves as the protector. They see themselves as the one who has to be macho, if you like, who has to look after the woman. And there's a great shame factor, I'm sure. I'm not a man, but I can imagine there's a great shame factor in bringing these things forward and making them public. So there's a reluctance to use the services. That means that the services don't get used that often, so that the police and the courts don't have much experience of dealing with it. And probably
your fault, because it's a really interesting point. That is because you haven't complained, nobody's familiar with the problem. It's not part of the system. They're not used to it. They can't not experience. They can't deal with it.
It's not the only problem though, because as the doctor says,
I'm going back
domestic
to the doctor.
violence.
I'm going back to the doctor.
Domestic violence is a gender-specific crime, whereby the government.
Well, doctor, as you realise, you are the problem.
Well,
you are part of the problem. I was going to come to you anyway at the end of the programme for what you said earlier, from what you've heard. Do you still stick to your view?
Well, I think we have to look at subdivisions here. Now, I know you don't like statistics. I'm not bringing any in.
Violence, doctor. There are no subdivisions of violence.
We're talking about a gradient. At one side, we have what we might call emotional abuse. Somewhere in the middle, there is the interface where women are attacking men much bigger and stronger than they are, whom they're unlikely to be able to seriously harm. Unlikely, I say. It's not invariably the case. And then at the other end of the domestic violence spectrum, we have the situation where a big man attacks a small woman, kills her, and is let off with a light sentence.
Have you ever been
now, let's get this on the right.
Have you ever been in the same room as somebody when a woman is hitting a man? Have you ever seen that? Because if you haven't, you can't say whether a woman could hurt a man, because they can. Because if you've never seen it, you can't see how a woman goes at a man.
I'm not allowed to mention statistics, but I do get the impression from all the reports in the press. And
the press aren't statistics.
Well,
can I just
Elena, there is help.
There is help.
Tell us about it. Tell you what, if there are women listening to this, or husbands, male partners who are in this situation, what should they do?
First, I think, is to admit to themselves that they're doing it, and seek help.
And where do you get the help from?
There's places out there. Doctors, there's...
Not this one.
You've got to... Not this one, obviously!
You can get help.
You can get help. We'll put the helpline up immediately now while I'm talking to you, because that's the number you can ring to get help. Violence is always unacceptable. Of course it is, whether it's a man against a woman or a woman against a man, and you don't have to accept it, and you shouldn't, because it humiliates both the person that's perpetuating the violence and the person that is the victim of it. Both are humiliated. Never mind what it does to the atmosphere in the home and the effect that it has on the kids living in a home like that. You don't have to put up with it, whether you're a man or a woman, and you shouldn't put up with it. And there is help, and you should get the help, and get it now. Take care of yourselves.
If you'd like to join Robert in a programme about whirlwind romances or being dumped when pregnant, call now on 0990 100 771. Have you had a whirlwind romance? How did people react? Are you still together, or do you now regret it? Are you concerned about your child's whirlwind romance? Secondly, did you leave your partner when she was pregnant? Was the relationship just not working out? Were you left when you were pregnant? Would you take him back? Call now.
On City Hospital at 10 this morning, we're in accident and emergency. The accident involves student Natalie, who's fallen on a sewing needle. It's embedded in her arm. The emergency involves little Jamie, who swallowed his brother's birthday present.
Which will establish